There are very few boxers ever who can escape defeat. From Tyson's shocking downfall to Canelo, Pacquiao, and beyond, this is how every famous boxer finally got beat. Mike Tyson. The first time Mike Tyson ever lost was February 11th, 1990, against Buster Douglas. Tyson came in as the undefeated, undisputed heavyweight champion, but his camp was a mess. He didn't train seriously. His corner forgot basic equipment like an end swell, and Douglas was fighting with the emotion of losing his mother just weeks before. In Tokyo, Douglas shocked the world, out-jabbing Tyson all night, surviving a knockdown in round 8 and then stopping him with a brutal combination in round 10. It was the biggest upset in boxing history, and Tyson's aura of invincibility was gone. After serving prison time and returning to boxing, Tyson put together some wins, but his second loss came against Evander Holyfield in 1996. This was billed as the finally fight, years in the making, but Holyfield was too tough, too smart, and too determined. He absorbed Tyson's best shots and broke him down, eventually scoring an 11th round TKO in one of Tyson's most humbling defeats. Of course, their rematch in 1997 became one of the most infamous nights in sports. Tyson, frustrated at Holyfield's rough tactics, bit his ear not once, but twice. The second time, he bit a chunk clean off. He was disqualified in round 3, handing him another loss and cementing one of the wildest moments in combat sports history. His next defeat came against Lennox Lewis in 2002. By then, Tyson was past his prime, while Lewis was at the peak of his power. Lewis dominated with his size, reach, and jab, wearing Tyson down before finishing him with a crushing right-hand knockout in the 8th round. It was the passing of the torch, with Lewis cementing himself as the best heavyweight of his era. Tyson's next 2 losses came at the very end of his career. In 2004, he was stopped by Danny Williams, a journeyman who took everything Tyson had early before coming back to TKO him in the 4th round. A year later, in 2005, Tyson faced Kevin McBride. Tyson quit on his stool after the 6th round, saying later that his heart wasn't in it anymore. Canelo Alvarez's rise was so fast, it almost felt like he skipped the learning curve. By the time he was 23, he was undefeated in 43 fights and already the biggest star in Mexican boxing. That's when he ran into Floyd Mayweather. Their fight in 2013 was hyped as a passing of the torch, but inside the ring, it was a schooling. Mayweather's defense was a riddle Canelo couldn't solve, his timing too sharp, his accuracy too precise. Canelo swung and missed round after round, and when the final bell rang, he had been handed the first loss of his career. It was humbling, but it set the foundation for the fighter he would become. Years later, Canelo looked unstoppable again. He had conquered weight classes from junior middleweight to light heavyweight, beating almost everyone put in front of him. But in 2022, he took another risk, moving back up to 175 pounds to face Dimitri Bivol. This time, it wasn't speed and slickness that beat him, but size and discipline. Bivol kept him at the end of a stiff jab, smothered his counters, and never lost his composure. Canelo pushed, he attacked, he even had moments, but it wasn't enough. After 12 rounds, the judges gave it to Bivol, and Canelo had his second loss. Then came 2025, and one of the biggest events boxing had ever seen. Canelo Alvarez against Terrence Bud Crawford, a man daring to jump 2 weight classes to chase greatness. For much of the fight, Canelo pressed forward looking to bully the smaller man, but Crawford refused to fold. Round after round, he picked Canelo apart with sharp counters and footwork that kept him a step ahead. By the final bell, the story was clear. The smaller man had just outboxed the Mexican icon. Crawford's hand was raised by unanimous decision, giving Canelo the 3rd loss of his career. Muhammad Ali's first loss came on March 8, 1971, the night the world called the fight of the century. Ali was 31-0, fresh off his exile, and finally standing across the ring from Joe Frazier. For 15 rounds, it was everything boxing promised. Ali's speed and combinations against Frazier's pressure and power. Ali landed in flurries, but Frazier never stopped coming. And in the 15th, Frazier landed a left hook so clean, it put Ali on the canvas. He got up, but the decision was undeniable. For the first time, the man who called himself the greatest had lost. 2 years later, in 1973, Ali suffered again, this time to Ken Norton, a fighter nobody expected to trouble him. Norton's awkward style and relentless jab frustrated Ali from the opening bell, and in the second round, Norton cracked his jaw. Ali fought on in pain for 12 more rounds, but Norton outpointed him and won by split decision. Ali's aura of invincibility took another hit, and though he would avenge Norton twice, that first fight remains one of his toughest nights. Fast forward to 1978, when Ali was already the three-time heavyweight champion. He faced Leon Spinks, a 24-year-old with only 7 professional fights. Nobody gave Spinks much of a chance, but youth and hunger can shock even the greatest. Spinks pushed Ali all night, outworking him over 15 rounds. When the scorecards were read, Leon Spinks had handed Ali his 3rd loss, one of the biggest upsets of the decade. Ali would avenge it later that same year, but the message was clear: time was catching up. By the 1980s, Ali was far from his prime. His next loss came against Larry Holmes in 1980. Holmes wasn't just any challenger. He had once been Ali's sparring partner, and now he was the heavyweight champion in his prime. Ali, slow and a shadow of himself, took a punishing beating. After 10 one-sided rounds, his corner stopped the fight. It was the only time Ali ever lost inside the distance, and it was painful to watch. Finally, in 1981, Ali stepped into the ring one last time, against Trevor Berbick. The magic was gone. Ali still had flashes of skill, but at 39 years old, his body simply couldn't keep up. Berbick won by unanimous decision, marking Ali's 5th and final professional defeat. Manny Pacquiao. Manny Pacquiao's journey is legendary, but it was shaped as much by his setbacks as his triumphs. His very first loss came in 1996, when he was still a teenage prospect fighting at flyweight. Against Rustico Torrecampo, Pacquiao came in overweight and was forced to wear heavier gloves than his opponent. In the 3rd round, Torrecampo landed a counter that dropped Pacquiao cold. It was a brutal reality check for a young fighter who had been racing through opponents. 3 years later, in 1999, Pacquiao's struggles with weight struck again. Defending his WBC flyweight title against Medgoen Singh Surat, Pacquiao was drained from cutting too much. In the 3rd round, Singh Surat landed a body shot that folded Pacquiao and ended the fight. It cost him his belt and convinced him to leave flyweight behind forever. For years after that, Pacquiao tore through divisions, becoming one of the most feared punchers in the sport. But in 2005, he met the Mexican legend Erik Morales. Rounds to hand him his 3rd defeat. It was a lesson in elite strategy and one that Pacquiao took twice in their rematches. Pacquiao didn't lose again until 2012, but when it happened, it came in waves. First was Timothy Bradley, marked an immediate demand for a rematch. Later that same year came a loss no one could debate, the 4th fight with Juan Manuel Marquez. After 3 razor-close battles, shocking knockouts, and the image of him unconscious at the bell became one of the sport's most replayed moments. 3 years later, in 2015, Pacquiao finally faced Floyd Mayweather in the long-awaited fight of the century and won a wide, unanimous decision. For Pacquiao, it was a night where his aggression met a wall of pure defensive mastery. His next defeat came in 2017 against Jeff Horn, a relatively unknown Australian who bullied to win, but the judges handed Horn a unanimous decision in front of his home crowd. It was another controversial chapter on Pacquiao's record. The final loss of his career came in 2021. Against Yordenis Ugas. Pacquiao, now 42 years old, was still chasing greatness. But Ugas, sharp and disciplined, controlled the fight with his jab and counters and earned a clear unanimous decision. For Pacquiao, it was the last time he stepped into a professional ring. Ryan Garcia. Ryan Garcia rose on speed, power, and viral hype, a phenom who made knockouts look like jump cuts. His first real reckoning came in April 2023 under the desert lights of Las Vegas when he shared a ring with Gervonta "Tank" Davis. Garcia fired fast and bold, but Davis had the answer: timing. A sharp counter left dropped Ryan early, and 7 rounds in, perfectly placed liver shot took his legs away. Garcia sank to a knee, trying to will the breath back into his body while the referee counted him out. It was over. A brutal, clinical finish that taught him the difference between speed and precision at the elite level. 2 years later, his comeback met Times Square, an outdoor spectacle, giant screens, a card built for headlines, and Rolando "Raleigh" Romero across the ring, the underdog who wasn't there to play a role. In round 2, Romero clipped Garcia and sent him down, then slowed the pace to a crawl, jabbing and smothering the left hook the whole night. When the cards came in, they told the same story the crowd had watched. Romero by unanimous decision, Garcia's second professional loss. Between those defeats sits the strangest chapter: Devin Haney at Barclays. Garcia dropped Haney 3 times and left the arena with a majority decision, only to have the result overturned months later after a positive test for Osterine. The official record calls it a no contest, not a win, not a loss. The night that vanished from the column where legacies usually live, Jake Paul. Jake Paul built his reputation on being the YouTuber who could actually fight. He racked up wins over fellow influencers, retired MMA legends, and even some legit pros. But the undefeated run didn't last forever. His first real test came against Tommy Fury in 2023. This wasn't another ex-UFC fighter or basketball player. This was a young, undefeated boxer with a name to protect, the younger brother of Tyson Fury. Tommy outboxed him, stayed composed, and when it was over, Jake Paul had his first professional loss. It wasn't a knockout, but it was decisive enough to remind everyone that boxing against real boxers is a different world.